standing by right now is somebody that I'm going to go off script per se, because I normally our team sets up a proper introduction for our guests. And I'm not going to read from it. I'm going to speak from the heart, as I have done. I've had him on the show a couple of different times. But I'm going to tell you, I'm bringing him on the show. We've got something coming up we've been talking about. And we've been talking about our opposition to what's going on in the streets with Antifa and all that stuff that's happening. But Portland, I believe, is ground zero for that. There's an event coming up August 17th. It's a public event. And it's expected to be big. But the one person that knows the dynamics of what's going on in Portland, I'd say he's probably he's one of a handful of people that really, really know and handles the dynamics very, very professionally. His YouTube channel is Oregon Cop Watcher. I'll put that up on the screen so that you can go see his work. He approaches his work with and I'm not going to say bias. I'm going to say when you hear anarchy, the true definition of anarchy is the liberty and the freedoms and the constitutionality that we all speak of. And I said it earlier when we said that he was going to come on, that Mike Bluehair, as an anarchist, is more constitutional than most of the constitutionalists. Okay. And that's how I've come to know him. So he is, for instance, with, some of the libertarians I get into discussions with, people that are, different than me politically. They're about open borders. I'm not about open borders. But, you listen to them and yes, it's true liberty. My opposition to open borders, for instance, politically, is that if you can have the Constitution on the other side of those borders all throughout the world, we don't need borders. Just make the entire world, a constitutional place, protecting our God-given rights. So that's a debate that we'll have. But Mike Bluehair, he's a cop watcher. He records their brutality. We know that some police make mistakes. We got to have some level of accountability. As a citizen journalist, he's been there, especially in Portland. We need to hold them accountable for some of the bad things that they do on a regular basis. And it mostly comes from the top. But he was there for the purpose of filming my arrest and covering the story out there in Burns, Oregon. That's how we met. And it was an experience. He showed tremendous professionalism. I really, really liked him, and we've had this bond, and I trust his perspective and expertise. And now I welcome to the show, Mr. Mike Bluehair is on the screen here. Hold on one second, Mike. Give me just a second. Welcome, Mike Bluehair, to the Pete Santilli Show once again.
Hi, Pete. It's so awesome to be with you and Deb again. This is amazing. I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation.
We are. And like I said, first and foremost, I trust your perspective on things, and and to say it, to open up by saying that we disagree on stuff. We haven't even had the conversation yet. We might fully agree on the bad things that are happening right now in the United States of America. We've got such a polarized opposition. We got a left-right paradigm right now that's very dangerous. And I don't think that even the people, front line, rank and file Antifa members in the streets of Oregon have been brainwashed into believing that anyone with a red MAGA hat is racist. And that's another dynamic. Do you know people right now that you've had conversations with that are just in the streets of Portland that have just been told the wrong things about the patriots that are on the other side that they hate?
I would say that the polarization and social media being used in a way that's negative for the body politic, or used in a way that's negative to everyone's perception. Yes, I think people both on the left and the right are being, for lack of a better term, radicalized against one another. But yes, I also know quite a few liberals, quite a few people on the extreme left that just believe that anyone who is right-wing or anyone who carries a flag is in support of white supremacy or white nationalism, and it's kind of dangerous. But I've seen unhinged people on both sides of the equation, and I think it's really dangerous. Just when people don't talk, when they don't dialogue, when they just see each other as the other. This is your team and that's my team, and I think it's really taking the country down a long, dark path of, honestly, I see America descending into a civil war But instead of like what happened in 1776, when the people righteously rose up against the state and the government, we're going to have right against left. And it breaks my heart to think about people that live in this country fighting with each other like that.
Well, Mike, let me, if you don't mind me becoming just slightly unhinged, and you can just have at me however you want. Seriously. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I personally, I observe and I watch Antifa coming after Joey Gibson and his group from the Patriot Prayer Group, knowing full well what they're going to be doing when they go out there. And please allow me to also become unhinged when I see Gavin McInnes and the Proud Boys coming out of their meeting in New York and watching Antifa come out and just pummel them. And I'm going to tell you something right now. This is where I become unhinged. I do not want to perpetrate violence upon anybody, but you bring that stuff to us. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm advocating for kicking their ass in defense.
Well, I'm a firm believer in self-defense, Pete. But here's part of the dynamic that a lot of people don't really understand that are on the outside looking in at this problem. Okay. One of the things that happens when Joey Gibson or the Proud Boys, come to Portland and have these events is you will get legitimate, no shit members of white nationalist organizations mixing in with their people. And those people are the people that people like Antifa want to go after. The problem is that it's such a mixed bag of people that a lot of times they miss the mark and just attack some random conservative, and that's the big problem. It's the problem is that you have this troll culture on the right where it's fun to trigger liberals, so people will say things that piss people off. I just let it roll right off my back. I don't care. I'm one of the most politically incorrect, rough, gruff kind of people you could ever meet. My sense of humor is very close to yours. I personally just laugh at some of the stuff you say on your radio show. I disagree with it, but I see the humor in it. Political satire is important, but you get these trolls in these events, and then people will just focus in on the violence instead of the all the nuance and all that fun stuff. So, there's a lot of ignorance
you bring up a
the
good
side
point.
of Antifa, and they attack people a lot of times without due cause or just cause. And I see that. You have unhinged people in every group, but the violence is what gets focused in on.
Okay,
not
let's
like
set
the
aside
political conversation that should be happening between right and left.
Okay, let's set aside the violence. Okay, so we'll set that aside, and let's not focus on just the violence and say, okay, we're going to go after Antifa because we watched a couple of YouTube videos. Okay, so let's set that aside. Now I'm going to become unhinged in the following. Who the F is Antifa to say whether or not I can go to Portland and pray? Who the frig are they? Who are they to say that? Forget the violence. I'm talking about like it's our town. They do this little freaking crackhead, meth head thing. Like, these are our streets. Whose streets? Our streets. They do that little commie freaking chant. What, really? We're in the United States of America. I'm going to come there and I'm going to freaking roll. And dude, I'm not a small guy, right?
Yeah.
I will freaking steamroll some freaking tofu eating little freaking anarchist. Excuse the expression, not directed at you. Okay, like Antifa, if you say I can't come to Portland, are you kidding me? Really? Stop me. I'm walking across the street. We're in the public square. Whose streets are these? I'm going to show you whose streets these are. You're going to try to stop me. Who are they to say where we can go and can't go?
I don't think it's morally or ethically correct, for anyone to tell somebody they can't come and practice their First Amendment.
Yes.
Okay. And that's my thoughts. I mean, if we want to bounce over to the Andy No situation, if I was there when that happened, if I was physically present and they were beating on him like that, I would have physically intervened, and I would have walked him to some medics. That's what I would have done.
I know. I believe that. Yeah.
I've done. I've honestly, my relationship with this whole right-left equation is very complicated because I've laid hands on people from both sides of the fence. I've had Proud Boys get in my face, and I've had to take care of that. I've had Antifa attack me, and I've had to take care of that because, I'm about peace, but if somebody brings violence to me, I'll damn sure finish it. I just see a whole lot of ignorance on both sides. Like, for instance, the blanket term anarchist, I mean, if you just do a Wikipedia search for anarchism or anarchists or different types of anarchism, you'll see that we're a hodgepodge of different political affiliations.
Sure.
Not all anarchists are brick throwing people that want to burn down banks.
I agree with that.
A lot of these people that are part of Antifa are the anarcho-communist derivation. And, I respect their right to have their free speech just as much as anyone else, but I'm not pro-violence unless it's in self-defense. That's just my feeling about it.
Same here.
So I can't condone it because I find it morally and ethically wrong.
Okay, let's talk about this. So if we break down the anarchists, not Antifa, we're not going to talk about it. Let's set aside the violence. Let's set aside Antifa, and then let's look at anarchy. Because when you go look at the true definitions of anarchy, you see varying levels of liberty seekers. They're seeking liberty and freedom. They really, really are. And
absolutely.
And to the extreme, where you just say, just let people do what they're going to do and suffer the consequences if they make mistakes. That's where you start getting a government that comes in and says, well, we can't trust the people to do that. We're going to have to do that for them. And that's where you get the debate from there on out.
Sure. Well, when government makes peaceful, change impossible, violent revolution is the only sane and rational solution. I mean, I'm pro-revolution, Pete. I'm dare I say, pro-riot. And I would like to describe to you what sort of riot that I'm in support of. I would love to have that conversation with you now. But yeah, government has become so oppressive. At this point, we imprison way more people than at the time of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago. We have more people in prisons in the United States than communist China, and you juxtapose our populations. You look at 300 million Americans versus a billion people that speak Chinese. Like wow, it's just crazy. If you want to look at every major societal change throughout the totality of human history, Pete, the glue that binds it all together, I'm sorry to say this, but it's riots, violence, and war. Every single major historical change, including those in the United States, have occurred because of riots and war. And I can walk you through it. Hold
on. I have a question for you, though. For instance, I've been called because I redressed grievance, right, of my government. I believed that the Obama administration was doing bad things. They brought 450 FBI agents with assault rifles to come kill people in Burns. I was oppositional to that because guess what? Our society, our system of governance, our constitutional protections, the laws that we have in place are actually all really good things. Now, when our government, the people that are running our government, start deviating away from what we are, then we need to hold them accountable. That's not anti-government. That's forcing them to do what we were designed to do. Now, what you just described is a revolution for like a tyrannical government with a dictatorship that's not doing things right. And we say we want our God-given rights protected. We already have everything in place. We just have a bunch of people that are deviating away from it. So why go oppositional anti-government? Why not just change it to force these people to do what they're supposed to do? You understand where I'm going?
I understand where you're coming from, Pete, but let's think about this. Let's see what happens, when people try to change it peacefully. You guys went out to Burns, Oregon. The Bundy folks took over the bird refuge. Then you went out to cover it as media. They had a legitimate grievance with the government about land rights issues. Mm-hmm. They wanted to protest the usurpation of the private property rights and the tyranny that was being wrought upon every rural farm person in Oregon. The Hammonds were being railroaded. And all the people there at the refuge said was, if government attacks us, we will defend ourselves. Yeah. So the corporate media blows that up, drums it up and calls it the Oregon standoff. Yeah. When the refuge was 31 miles away from town, they were closing the school in Burns. Yeah. They were telling the federal government were calling all the government employees saying the people at Burns are going to kidnap you, you know, and you had hundreds of federal agents, 6 MRAP vehicles, a drone, a Cessna plane with surveillance packages, and a helicopter, and they took over the airport there and just turned it into a militarized nightmare, and ended up giving all the people that participated in that legitimate protest, non-violent protest, prison sentences. They
hold on a second. Wait. You just skipped an important step.
To cover it.
Yes, you just
daring to film it, and they imprison you for more than a year, right?
You just skipped. It was 619 days, but you just skipped an important part. You went right to the incarceration part. This is what you skipped, and this is where we have differences.
Okay.
So we weren't getting our way. I say we, the people, we don't get our way. In Burns, Oregon, when the protesters went and took over the bird farm and they weren't getting their way and the FBI was coming, at what point did they say, I'm not getting my way, I'm going to go break windows? At what point did they start throwing freaking poop at people and piss-filled bottles? At what point did you see anybody, even all the way through incarceration, did they deviate and start becoming just a lawless freaking vandalist? At what point did they do that?
That wasn't my line of thinking, and I'm more than willing to compare apples to oranges like Antifa to right-wing protests, but please allow me to finish my train of thought.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
You asked me what happens when people legitimately have the grievance, and I think it's time for more of a resistance type of thing. I mean, think about it, Pete. Dwayne Elmers dug a hole in the ground. That's all he did. He dug a hole in the ground with some equipment so that people might take cover in it because he was worried that people would be hurt. They put him in prison for a year, and he was out there at Malheur. I mean, this is what happens when people protest and just say they're willing to defend themselves against the government. I mean, you know what? As an anarchist, if I encounter a law that is unjust or immoral, I have a moral obligation to disobey it. And I'll give a very good example. Okay, taking the liberty of nonviolent felons to defend themselves, Pete, I think it's morally and ethically wrong and repugnant that your gun rights are taken from you because of your conviction at Malheur. That's not right. You know, and I could go on all day about unjust, illegal laws and tyranny and oppression that the government wages on the people, and no one's doing anything about it. I mean, the American Revolution was fought in part over just a few percentages of a tax on tea. And now we have federal and state government robbing, stealing a third of everyone's income. Okay, and no one's doing anything. They just bend over and take it.
I know, but here's the deal. Let's use my example. Okay,
sure.
Did I come out after 619 days as a convicted whatever it was that they want to call me, which I'm not, but I wanted to seek freedom and beat the piss out of them for 620 days onward, right? They're going to wish that I was some domestic terrorist like they declared me because I'm exposing the truth about them. But sir, I digress. Let me set that aside. You know what I'm wanting to do is I want to fix things. At what point do we say, before we go to a violent revolution, we have to redress grievance. We need to approach them and say, hey, what you're doing is wrong. We need to change the laws. You have to change the law that you disagree with. You can't just say, I'm going to go ahead and violate it. You have to change it. Why don't you run for why don't we have some Antifa members say, well, we don't like capitalism, so we're going to try to come up with a better way, which they don't have, by the way. They have crappy ideas. That's why they start smashing windows, because they can't change things. They don't have a better solution to the capitalism that they revolt against.
I'm not in the position to defend Antifa as a group because I don't really believe they have a unifying theme or leaders per se or any kind of centralized anything.
Okay, how about just changing the laws though? How about you just in the example that you gave, you said that violent revolution is necessary, but we can't skip the most important step, and that is if we disagree with a law, why don't we put ourselves in a position to change the law? Why not? Why don't? What about that most important part?
Well, because we don't live in a constitutional republic anymore, Pete. We live in a plutocratic oligarchy where in the Washington Beltway,
You're right.
heads of corporations buy politicians on the left and the right.
You were so right,
me personally, dude. I'm a voluntarist.
Yeah.
I'm or anarcho-capitalist, whatever you want to call me. But I believe in voting with your money. You people could check this out, Pete. We don't even need government or laws to change to have a better society. If people like yourself and me and others in the alternative media would expose what these corporations are doing to taint the government and to usurp the rights of the individual, we could actually have a culture where people vote with their money. If you don't like what these corporations are doing that have hijacked your government, don't buy their stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't buy their stuff, trust me, they will bend over backwards.
Yeah.
They'll be doing little backflips to figure out how to please you so they can get your money. So from my perspective, I don't think it's too far gone, Pete, in my humble opinion, to change the laws for the better. I mean, choosing what to do with your money, I'm serious. Corporations will bend to the will of the people.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not going to, it would be disingenuous and I'd be dishonest if I didn't tell you that I believe that we might be too far gone. But I'm just thinking, as you know, the quote unquote, as you know me, I mean, I'm not going to step out of bounds. And even when you filmed my arrest, I was compliant. I didn't resist arrest. I didn't believe I did anything wrong. And even if I was oppositional to it and I didn't deserve it, I'm still a law-abiding citizen. So I have that position, not as a pacifist, okay? Because don't get me wrong. I agree with you when it gets to the point of no return. You want to keep pushing us, and you want to keep pushing us, and you want to keep pushing us. I will not bring in an offensive manner, okay? I will say that we will stand and defend these principles that I believe in. Now, all along the way, I'm not going to break your window because I got butt hurt and I didn't know how to articulate it. And let's not use Antifa. But you're saying we're too far gone, and we may need to use some powerful language, like the protesters in Hong Kong are a great example. 2 million people in the freaking streets shutting it down, saying we don't agree with what you're doing.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, please.
Joey Gibson went there, and I've talked with Joey just a few days ago. They had like a pot patriot barbecue type thing out on the beach, and I went out there to try to interview people or cover it as media. And Joey told me he was standing with their version of Antifa. They're covering their faces so the government cannot use facial recognition software and tyrannize them further when they go home. And these people have a legitimate grievance with government. And right now they're smashing windows, breaking, taking over government buildings with the sheer force of people power. Okay, they've come up with these ingenious ways to keep the police at range. And I think it's great. They have hundreds of people on the front lines of their protests with laser pointers, and they're shining it in the cops' faces. And since a beam of light has a further range, Pete, than less lethal weapons, they've been able to keep the police out of range of less lethal weapons without hurting them. Wow. With laser pointers.
I kind of like that. I like that.
Don't do it in America. Most states have laws that are a misdemeanor, and you can get like a year in jail for pointing a laser pointer at a cop. But I think it's a brilliant strategy that's being employed over there. They're also shutting down the people because these people are hungry and they want what's over here in this country, like a constitutional republic that's centered around concepts like the individual liberty of the human being is more important than the liberty of the government. Now, that's what they want over there, and they're physically fighting for it. I think it's beautiful. Yeah. It's a gorgeous thing. But, I mean, I have to say something, Pete. One of my favorite quotes of MLK is, the riot is the language that's spoken by the voiceless. And I know you might find this off-putting, but just let me get this out, Pete. Every major peaceful person, every pacifist that's caused great change in the world was directly involved with riots. And I'll explain. Gandhi, when the British were tyrannizing the people of India and having attacks for them to be able to even vote, taxing salt, taxing them into the dirt, using them as nothing but slave labor. When Gandhi would go on his hunger strikes, when he would hunger strike, you would have hundreds of riots all over the country. Okay, when Gandhi was arrested, you would have hundreds of riots. So the historical precedent is that you have the government looks at these situations and they see a Gandhi, and then they see the hundreds of riots that have occurred and the thousands of people that were injured and the hundreds of law enforcement that were killed, and they're like, government at that point has a choice to choose between the lesser of two evils. So they're going to go with the peaceful guy. So Gandhi gets held up on this pedestal, but if you actually do some deep research and analysis about what was going on politically, socially at the time, it was because of riots. The same thing for the civil rights movement of the United States.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not off-putting. You're right, because his strength, Gandhi's strength in the face of his opposition, he was allowed to be peaceful because he had strength and power in the people that were expressing them through their physical riots, right? Yeah,
pretty much,
yes. A little bit more powerful negotiating position. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you negotiate from a position of power, a position of strength. Government doesn't respect anything, I feel, but violence and force.
Yeah.
But let's look at the civil rights movement in the United States. Okay, MLK, Martin Luther King, Dr. King gets all the credit for the civil rights movement, for all the progressive changes, for all the things that were necessary for Black people and to get treated better in this country. Here's the thing: when MLK was doing all his marches, when he did Selma, when he practiced all the passive resistance and nonviolent resistance, at the very same time period, you had the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense doing open carry events in Washington, D.C. They had a bunch of Black militants with uniforms, marching around D.C. going and explaining to the government that if you guys keep attacking our people, if you guys are going to keep doing more of these unlawful, murders and shootings of Black people, we will defend ourselves. Then you had the Black Muslims.
Yeah.
You had Malcolm X saying by any means necessary, and you had these Black militant groups organizing to fight the government. And then 1968, you had the long hot summer. You had over 160 riots in one summer, and President Kennedy. Not President Kennedy. It was Kennedy. Kennedy was faced with a choice. He was thinking, do we go with this non-violent guy, or do we try to negotiate further with these people that are willing to rise up against us? So, that's the fact of the matter, is that all the major changes in America had to do with, the government calls them criminals at first. You look at the Sons of Liberty that rebelled after those British soldiers shot those civilians. They rioted. They burned down buildings. They destroyed private property. I mean, if it's righteous and justifiable, I have no issue with looking back on history saying those people did a good thing. Now, I have to tell you, Pete, that one of the things that people on the right don't understand in their analysis, I think property destruction is kind of stupid. I wouldn't do it myself, but I understand the animus and the anger that young people feel when they throw a rock or a brick through a bank window. I mean, you think about 2008 and then 2011 and all the quantitative easing and all the financial bailouts. It's basically a welfare system for the banks and a welfare system for the big corporations to eat out the substance of the country and take all of our monetary momentum and give us nothing back in return except a bunch of debt.
Push the pause button. Hold that thought right there. We're going to pick up on the other side. Okay? And on the other side, after you finish that thought, then I'm going to share, of course, your YouTube channel as well, where people can find you. You do great work, Mike. You really, really do. And I think everyone has already settled in the first 30 minutes of this conversation that this is the guy that we want to be speaking to. That the word, anarchy as we reference it with Mike Bluehair. It shouldn't have a negative connotation. He is a liberty lover. He's a constitutionalist above and beyond some of the constitutionalists that I've ever met. But we'll be back with Mike Bluehair right after a message from our sponsors, and we'll also play that video that he filmed of my arrest. A lot of people haven't seen that. You guys are about to see that in the next half of the next hour. Here we go. I'm sorry for the interruption, but Mike Bluehair, pick up where we left off. A lot to cover in this next half hour. Some stuff's coming up August 17th, and you can offer from your perspective what you know about how to deal with what's going to happen in Portland on the 17th. But sir,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just to wrap up what I was talking about, basically the 2008 and 2011 rape of Lady Liberty, because that's what the bankers did. They held her down and they did her dirty, and nothing was done about it. Okay, when you see these anarchist kids throwing a brick through a bank window, you see them dragging newspaper bins out into the streets, and you see them, destroying property. And you say to yourself, oh, these people they're just violent animals. They're destroying things. No, their protest, the context of their protest is what bank windows are they breaking? If you look at the stockholders and you look at the holdings and you look at what these various groups are into, there is your nuance. There is your protest. So when they break a Bank of America building or window, or when they break a Wells Fargo window, it's insured. So they're destroying insured property that the bank's going to get the money back for. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I think people need to think about, well, why are they angry and why are they breaking the bank window? So in that context, I'm sorry, but they're doing a good thing.
Now, if you don't mind me saying so, I don't want to belabor this point, but
Sure.
That's where we have our differences, because and you mentioned something, and I don't want to spin off onto an ideological
Sure.
tangent at all. But there is a difference, okay? And I understand what you're saying. You're understanding that they're justified in doing their thing. I'm absolutely oppositional to it, because when you say that it's insured, well, it's not free money. That's the socialist mentality. That it's just going to come off of a tree and the insurance is going to cover it, and no one will have to actually cover that loss, when in fact ultimately it goes higher up the food chain. But you're saying
The bank
that
has to cover the loss when they peak through their insurance
when the insurance premiums go up,
they're messing with private property.
Trust me, the bank doesn't, out of their own generosity, pull money out of their pocket. They're going to bilk their customers to offset that expenditure over a period of time, and you just won't see it. Yeah. So,
Right.
so I also want to make one final comment. Is that whatever they're justified in doing, I have a problem with the lies they're being told in order to justify it. I've read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, okay? And I know how they get whipped up into a frenzy.
So have I.
They're given talking points that are not close to reality and the truth. And because their leaders want those violent people to go out and put that level of pressure on, because just like you said, sometimes the only way to get your way is to kick and scream and smash windows, and violence is the only way to push your agenda. But their leadership is lying to them. They're not, because I don't believe that they like free market economies. They don't. Okay, they want a collective, socialized system with free handouts, free education, and so on and so forth. It is an economic ideology that I'm oppositional to. I don't like communism. I don't like socialism at all. They believe that the poor people should be taken care of. I believe that as well. I just don't think that the way that they want to do it with free EBT cards and government assistance is the way to do that. So I want to give you a chance to respond to that, and you're welcome to do that. But we need to shift gears here.
Sure, I'll just respond to it very quickly.
Yes.
Okay, I oppose collectivism, and I oppose state socialism and state communism. But as far as I'm concerned, the people on the right are just as collectivist as the lefties. And what I mean by that, very quickly, is here's the reality of it. The biggest welfare mother in our society is the military-industrial complex. All the entitlements that right-wingers complain about is this really small window of money, and then you have this huge column of stuff that's spent on war and militarism. So when people are jingoistically waving their flags, you know, and they love saying their Pledge of Allegiance, I got one for you, Pete. The Pledge of Allegiance was designed and penned by a socialist, and he was called Jeremy Bellamy. And you can Google the Bellamy Salute. But the idea was that Americans were too individualistic. They were too into their independence. So we need to collectivize them into one united American mentality and idea. But yes, the Bellamy Salute and the original salute to the flag in the Pledge of Allegiance was for kids to hold out their hands like a Nazi salute directly at the U.S. flag, and I find that kind of chilling and creepy. But yes, so people supporting our war and our government and waving their flags, they're collectivist. They're in my mind's eye just as bad as the socialists and just as bad as the communists, because they all want welfare too. I mean, okay, how does it make a right-winger feel when I say that I think entitlement should be done away with? Let's abolish all the VA hospitals. I think those people had a bad life choice because they knew people were going to try to blow them up in Iraq. So why should I have to pay for their mental health and their physical therapy? No, we should not tax the medical corporations so that they can have better infrastructure, so that they can provide soldiers that come home from war better medical care. You know. People on the right want welfare. They just want a different kind. They want it for the military-industrial complex. They want it for the prison-industrial complex.
No,
That's why they like to wave this flag that I have hung upside down behind me.
I'm for social programs. I'm a veteran. I believe in the following. I don't believe that the individual that made that sacrifice so that the military-industrial complex could take all of the profits at the expense of us, including our limbs. Okay, I think that we should still have the social programs, but it shouldn't come from the taxpayer. It should come out of friggin' war profits at the minimum, first and foremost, but still take care of our troops. The burden shouldn't be, because medical expenses are huge. They got a broken medical system. I don't think that an individual should have to shoulder that burden. The first step should be to take some of those profits that the military industrial complex takes and not put the cost of long-term health care on the backs of the taxpayer and the individual. Now, let's shift gears if we can, because seriously, I'm going to have
the original reason of trying to take care of people when they come here and help them understand how to deal with the police.
Yes. We had an experience here, and I'm going to put it on the screen, and then we'll segue to, of course, the conversation about Portland, your experience. Now, you went out there. You're in Oregon, and you heard about what was going on out at the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and you packed up and you went out there, and I met you. It was a great experience. You know that things were pretty intense for me, and I was barking out orders, but you were riding shotgun. And ultimately, when it came down, when the red dots were flying and the snipers were up in the, for my particular arrest, you saw what was going on. People were actually dying. We were hearing about that. We were reporting on it. But ultimately, I think you witnessed personally, on camera and off camera, that I was interested in stopping that stupidity that was going on. People didn't need to die. I wanted to go up there and get the people out of the refuge, shut the whole stupid protest down. It's over. And then when I did that, they said, "Oh, Mr. Santilli," and you were there for that event. And here it is. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. I'm going to fast forward here.
And ask people to come out peacefully when all of a sudden the sheriffs just grabbed Santilli and arrested him.
At minimum, even if those that choose to stay back there of their own free will, I can't force them to go. Absolutely. Those that choose to stay back there, we need to get the women and the children out of there. Okay, period. I know that will happen. That's guaranteed. Guaranteed. They will come out. Okay. No women and children. There are women and children there. Do you know this?
Yeah. How many?
Quite a few.
Yes.
Okay. Please allow us to go up there and get them. They will be back with us. Guaranteed. That is a guarantee. Those that choose to stay back there, let it be. I know that I can convince, I can persuade that we need to just end this right now. Okay?
I'll say this, I absolutely appreciate the offer.
let us work.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be standing by right here. You let me know what I need to do.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
Thank you.
How long do you think?
Give us a few minutes.
Well, just give us a few minutes. We're going to talk about it. Well, guess what? They already had an indictment because they're a bunch of piece of shit, freaking rat bastard, corrupt mother effers. Okay?
So they're going to discuss it.
They're like, we're going to discuss it. Well, Pete, those are great ideas. Hold on a second. We're going to discuss it. Bunch of freaking pussies with their fake 302 reports, their fake witnesses, and their Janet Reno freaking tanks. Okay?
There are people that I know and love. Okay, there are patriots there. Okay, there are men, beautiful souls, young men. There are women. There are children. Anybody you're worried about?
There's beautiful souls up there. There's women and children.
No, I know you're worried.
By the way, this guy right in the center, this guy is one of the biggest pieces of crap that I've ever had to confront. This guy knew exactly what he was going to do. Watch him nod over to his little Code 3 freaking corrupt FBI agent.
I have to look them in the eyes and say it's time to go. Those who choose to stay at their own free will. It's up to them. I need to be able to talk to them. The FBI don't know. The FBI
He's nodding.
Up there. That's not a good scenario for even them. We don't want them to get harmed. We don't want you guys to get harmed. I need to be able to go up there.
We don't want you guys to get harmed. We don't want you guys to get harmed. I've always had that position.
And say, this is over. This is stupid. It's done. It's time to go. Okay? Gunshots being fired. That's stupid. Nobody wants that. Get you the fire there, sir. Yeah. If you guys confirm what happened, we're not going to confirm anything. You know, okay? I mean, to me, personally. No, we're not going to confirm anything. Okay? You can't confirm anything. Okay. You got to understand.
That's not something we can deal with tonight.
I understand. Okay, I understand. Yeah, I'm making a genuine offer here to go get women and children, get them out of there.
Are you arresting Pete Santilli right now, sir? Of course I will. I'm just going to document, okay? I'll stand back here at a safe distance and document them arresting Pete, okay?
Hey, stay in the car. Stay in the car.
If you need me to back up, I'll back up, officer, okay?
Hey, why am I under arrest?
Hey, get back up.
Okay, sure. Just tell me where.
Back up to the car.
Okay.
Back up to the car.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the United States of America, why I was under arrest is because I was doing exactly what I do each and every day, delivering the truth and beating those corrupt mother effers in the balls is why I got arrested. That's why I got arrested.
Sir, back up. Put the camera away right now. Right now, please.
I'm documenting, sir.
Hey, you can document from the car.
Okay, sure. I'll go into the car, sir.
All right, thank you.
I'm not going to put the camera away.
Any firearms?
No, sir. There's no firearms in the car, sir. Please don't aim the rifle at people.
No one's aiming a rifle at you.
This is a non-perimeter. This is a perimeter now.
It's a perimeter. We got it, and I got freaking testosterone in my system. It's a perimeter. We're not pointing guns at you. You just did, you freaking dingaling.
Do not come.
Can I walk away from here so I can film safely,
Stay
sir?
right here till they're done.
Okay. I'm following your orders.
Yes, sir. You can film.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to document Santilli's arrest. Okay.
Document all you want. Just stay right there.
Okay. I will not move.
Oh, they're just doing their job.
Okay. Sure. Thank you.
They're just doing their job.
Thank you for complying.
Yes.
They're just doing their job. And I have a little message from my good friends over at the corrupt side of the FBI. Okay? 619 days later, I was released. Okay? You got your little 619 days, you think? But I literally just beat you to an absolute friggin' legal pulp. We won Oregon. I believe that I was instrumental in making that happen. We had the case dismissed in Nevada. I was extremely instrumental in making that happen. And from here on out, day 620 on, I'm going to expose you corrupt mother effers until you just start crying. For what you did to me is the least of my concerns, is what you're doing to the United States of America. All I ever did was deliver the truth about you corrupt pukes working for Hillary Clinton, escorting the bin Laden family out of out of the country. Mike, I'm sorry. I obviously very emotional about what I just saw. Dude, were you floored when that happened?
Honestly, Pete, I was going there expecting them to be arresting some of you guys. I came with the intention of covering it precisely the way I did. The thing that bothered me the most is when the officer aimed the rifle at Deb, and I said, please don't. And just a scared look on Deb's face when she held up her hands. I had to fight the urge to drop my camera for a couple seconds. I almost ended up going to federal prison. I am not an observer by nature, Pete. I'm a doer. One of the reasons why I picked up a camera in the first place is because I was at a time in my life where I didn't want anything to do with society. I wanted to withdraw from all of it. I wanted to live my life and not be part of American culture anymore because I felt that it was just, a plutocratic tyranny. The Occupy movement happened, and I put my prioritization of wanting to be a militant on the back burner and started to become a militant videographer. That gave me a little bit of hope that I could do something positive. If I can shine a light on this blue tyranny that's behind me, I'm going to do it. But that's what I get emotional about, is thinking about if that cop would have saw something in the car and shot Deb, I would have dropped my camera. I almost dropped it, and he didn't pull the trigger.
Dude,
we had
red dots.
I get really emotional about that whole thing.
We had red dots all over the place. I mean, that was just so unnecessary. I mean, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to show you that, Mike was there after I left. They were in the car. I have a bond with him forever because I really like his perspective, just like you've been hearing from him up until this point. I wanted to share that with those people that have never seen that video. My life was forever changed. I'm not butthurt about it. I'm just absolutely bound and determined to just expose these corrupt bastards. Absolutely. I will never stop. I don't even need a gun to do that. You know what my weapon of choice is, Mike Bluehair? This microphone.
Camera?
Yeah, the camera and the microphone. Absolutely. And I will stand on my 2 feet. I don't fear them. I said it to them out there. I said, be constitutional. Somebody said, you threatening me? I'm like, if you think that that's a threat, then freaking drop me right here. Put a bead on my forehead and drop me. I'm not going to back up to that. I'm not. So, sir, there's things that are going on right now in the streets, and it's not going to get any better. So August is coming up. We're going to use that as an example. A lot of pagers are saying, now, of course, I believe that Antifa antagonists are wanting, because they need violence. I know. I'm going to hold you over, by the way. We're going to get interrupted at the top of the hour. But I'm going to hold you over because we have to have a discussion about this.
I would love to stay longer with you, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. But to my point, Marxism needs the violence that Antifa is antagonizing. They're a nice little bunch of little skinny friggin' non-meat eating tools, okay, that are tools of Marxism. Marxism needs violence, okay? It's the Hegelian dialectic. They create the civil unrest that's coming, that's here right now. They create the scenario where there's civil unrest. They know what the reaction is going to be by the general public, and then they run to the podium and say, this is how we're going to solve it. We need to have a peaceful place. And their politicians, the Marxist politicians, are there thanks to the good graces of the violent people. They're going to take civil unrest to the streets. And I guess I'm kind of lucky because I get to put you on mute and go to the top of the hour news break. I'll let you have the first word, but the last word on that topic. But we will have civil unrest. It is coming. There's a lot of people that are going to converge. Now, we got important dynamics. We got three elements right now. We have the left, or Antifa, okay? We have the patriots on one side, and then you got the government on the other side, which includes the police. And I say that that's a perfect storm coming up on the 17th. Well, the Patriots need to know what the heck is going on at Ground Zero in Portland, especially if you're coming from California to go to a riot in Portland. You better know what's going to be coming at you. And Mike Bluehair knows because he's been in the streets. Ground Zero, Portland. And he's going to tell you what you need to know if you decide to go to these events. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Pete Santilli Show. Pete Santilli telling you the truth, whether you like it or not.
This is a time traveler hanging out with Pete Santilli and FEMA Region 5 in the bunker. We're going to give a check. We're going to be lining our faces there, dodge jet, staying right, wrap sideways, down, till we lost colors and make the truth come out, period.
There's just too much to cover. And I had to hold Mike Bluehair over. I don't normally do that, Mike. But you know what? You're like family to us anyway. And I'm loving the conversation. But I of course, especially didn't want to just leave my commentary right where it was. I mentioned something about, and you were rolling your eyes, that Marxism and Antifa as a tool for Marxism bringing violence, they need that in order to install it. I believe that's what the left represents, and we will respond to that with an equal and opposite force of crushing communism. Okay?
Okay, if you look at our society, we are already a mix. Our government, our banking, our finances. If you look at our society, we have right now most of the bad elements of collectivism and socialism, and most of the bad elements of the capitalist monetary system. And the good aspects of both those systems are thrown out, so we get this bastard hybrid version of both. And I think the powers that be want both sides to fight so they can profit from it, because what they get in return when people fight with one another, when you have the conflict between the left and the right, is more tyranny. And that's what I think is going on. And it breaks my heart, and that's what I fight. I do not want to be on my deathbed looking up at whoever I'm lucky enough to have beside me and think I did not resist this tyranny. Okay, you like to call me a constitutional anarchist. I think of myself more as an anarchist that understands the Constitution, because those founding principles and those ideas need to be fought for. They need to be struggled for, and that's just where I'm at with that. But let's get into helping people understand what they're going to face when they come down for what I would call a riot vacation that's promoted by Joe Biggs. I want to help conservatives that are walking into this, that haven't been to these kind of events, understand how to best be safe while they're there. And I think that's way more important of a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, you've been in the streets. You've seen how Portland PD acts. You mentioned something to me off the air I think is real important. What is the police, what is their attitude when they go into this very volatile situation between, we'll say, the left and the right? What is their first and foremost objective? Is it to become heroes? Is it to become to bring peace? What is the position of the city of Portland as it relates to their police officers in the streets?
Okay, there's only a few hundred Portland Police Bureau officers. When you have a large protest involving thousands of people, the police have to maintain the illusion of control. Okay, if they do not maintain that illusion, they lose control. And then if you think the violence that you've seen so far on the internet is something, oh boy. Okay, so the first thing is to maintain that illusion of control, because I've been at large protests. When Occupy Portland had 10,000 people marching in the street and we only have a few hundred cops that could be marshaled to do riot control, we did pretty much anything we wanted. Okay, there was a lot of property destruction, but not a lot of people were hurt. And that would be the same of people with any ideology. So they have to maintain that illusion of control. And their primary concern, irrespective of what you will be told by Daniel Outlaw, our police chief, or Daryl Turner, our police union association president, or the mayor, the primary concern of the officers themselves will be officer safety. So they will establish phalanxes of riot cops and try to kettle both groups in free speech cages. or pens. And if enough people spill out and go at each other, the police are just going to dump an ungodly amount of less lethal weapons at both groups until they stop. Okay, and that's something I need to segue into. When you come to Portland, if you want to kick some Antifa ass, you need to understand one thing. Okay, this is very important. A protest in Portland, Oregon is nothing more than a turkey shoot, a canned hunt for cops to use less lethal weapons. And I know that sounds extreme, but I'll just walk you through it really fast. Okay? If a cop shoots you with an impact munition, or shoots you with a rubber bullet, or blows a sting ball, which is a rubberized grenade that has these little rubber balls in it.
I have it on the screen, by the way. Yep.
Cool. Or one of these signaling flares that they like to shoot over the crowd that blows up above the crowd. If one of those pieces of debris from the top of that hits you in the head, you have no recourse as a citizen. And I'll explain this very clearly. There is no way for the police to be held accountable for using less lethal in Portland, Oregon. And here's how that works. Our complaint system to make an official complaint against a Portland Police Bureau officer, it states by the union contract that you have to identify the officer's name for the complaint to even go from the preliminary stage. So you can't get any grievance. So here's the thing. Our police wear these ballistic helmets and a polycarbonate face shield, and then they wear a balaclava a lot of times, a mask over their face. They are required by Portland Police Bureau policy to wear a name tag on their outermost garment. Well, that's this teeny little metallic thing about this big that you can't see it about 3 or 4 paces. They also wear a name on their riot gear, which is it's about 1.5 inch font, and it's about this big. But still, at 10 or 12, 15 paces, you can't read that either. Mm-hmm. Also, if these Portland Police Bureau officers that are going to be shooting people with these less lethal weapons have a weapon slung over their shoulder, which that's how they carry them, the strap goes right across the middle of the name tag. So if you cannot identify the officer by name, you get no redress of grievance. And these weapons, they're called less lethal because a certain percentage of the people they use them on are killed. Okay, last year, anti-fascist kid had part of a flashbang distraction device that blew up above his head that was improperly fired. It lodged itself in his cheap little bike helmet and caused him a traumatic brain injury. So that is what you're walking into if you come here. Like, if they hit you with less lethal weapons, if they use tear gas on you or CS or OC pepper spray, there is no grievance because you can't identify the officer's name. The officers are saliently aware of this fact, and they just act all willy-nilly with it. They act like they're playing paintball, and it's disturbing. I have video clips of cops laughing after using less lethal on people, and it's done right out in front of God and everybody, in front of a bunch of cameras, and nothing can get done about it.
And they will deploy this stuff, especially for their own protection, to get everybody to disperse, period.
Right. They're not going to send officers in there between the fighters and pull them apart. You might see that once or twice, but you're not going to see that done very often. It's safer for them to just dump less lethal all over everybody.
Yeah. What kind of weaponry are they deploying? So you're out there in the middle of the street, all of a sudden you hear all this banging. You know, you think that it's gunshots, right? It's intended to as a pattern interrupt, just to shock you, right?
Sure.
So
I'd like your viewers, after they watch this, to bop on over to Defense Technology's website and look at their less lethal products. Mm-hmm. This is the company that Portland buys this stuff from. And I'll go through a lot of the weapons that people are going to encounter. Okay, we'll start with the FN-303. The FN-303 is a glorified paintball gun that shoots these weird little bullets, or projectiles. They're about this big, and they have a plexiglass dome on the front, and inside that dome is CS tear gas powder. And they can use this weapon in one of two ways. They can fire it at the ground, because it's fully automatic. They can fire it at the ground and disperse this OC tear gas into the air, and people choke and it's hard to breathe and they scatter, or they can shoot you with it directly. When they shoot you with it directly, you get CS tear gas powder embedded into your skin. Very unpleasant and makes a bruise about this big. Okay. They're trained to shoot at your legs and the meaty areas of your thigh. If you're ever hit with an impact munition in center mass, it's being used improperly. Okay. But they do it all the time. Last year, I was shot by the second weapon that I'm going to tell your viewers about. There's something called a spin-stabilized foam baton. Okay, this is basically they have a 40 millimeter grenade launcher, and they have a little rubbery, spongy grenade that's about yay big around and this long. And they're also trained to aim for the meaty areas of your legs or your thighs.
I have it on the screen, by the way. Yep.
Yeah. I was shot in the abdomen, right in the guts, like just about 4 inches north of my twig and berries last year with one of these things, and it is unpleasant. Okay. I had pain walking for the next 2 weeks afterwards. So that's a weapon that you'll encounter is these foam batons. Another weapon that you'll encounter is inert flashbangs or distraction devices. These don't have any component inside that can hurt you unless you're standing super close to it. It makes a bright flash, and it basically frightens people. If you're pounding on somebody, I've filmed so many protests and watching people riot with each other and fighting, and both combatants will kind of flinch and look away, and the neurophysiological response to these things is kind of interesting academically because it literally makes them stop punching and they just kind of flinch and look around. But then you have other variations of this same kind of grenade. You have something called a sting ball. A sting ball is a flashbang that makes the same amount of light, but it also shoots out I think 30 or so, about 30, I think, little rubber BBs. Okay. And it blows up just like a grenade. It makes an explosion that's kind of up and out from the ground. And if you're right by these things, if it hits your bare skin, you're going to get a little hole in your bare skin. You're going to get a nice bruise from it. And there's other variations of the blast ball or the flash bang that you'll be encountering. They have ones with just a small amount of CS tear gas in them that makes a cloud about 4 or 5 feet high and about 3-4 feet wide, and it slowly wafts. And it's an irritant. It burns your eyes. It burns your skin. When you breathe, it burns inside of your nostrils and down your frickin' throat. That's really, really pleasant. They also have an aerial dispersing signaling flare that they use for the same kind of reasons that they use the flashbangs. They're supposed to be fired at a 20-degree angle, and they shoot it out of a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. And there's something called deflagration. It's a fancy word. It means blow up. But it deflagrates at about 20 feet above people's heads. So the thing is it looks like a grenade, except it has a 40 millimeter grenade, except it has a little plastic cone on the front. And if they shoot that at a shallower angle than they're supposed to, than 20 degrees, if they shoot it at 10 degrees, it's going to blow up instead of 20 feet above people's heads. It's going to blow up about 10 feet above people's heads. So these things, the nose cone flies off of it. So if it hits you and causes a traumatic brain injury, just like it did to that Antifa kid. I think it was an Antifa kid. I haven't researched his politics, but a leftist protester last year. If you're wounded by this thing and you can't provide Portland Police Bureau with the officer's name, good luck getting the complaint through.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, sir. Now I have on the screen here one of the Patriot Prayer riots up there in Portland. I want you to speak to this here in the remaining moments that we have. And I'm going to skip this this break here that I normally do at the 15-minute mark. What do you expect to happen on the 17th? There's something about this particular Portland event that makes me feel uncomfortable, just because of the sheer number of people that I think are going to converge. What's the biggest riot that you've seen there in Portland? Is this going to be one of the biggest one? Are you anticipating that it will be?
if it is not controlled better than all the other ones that I've seen, it's going to be more violent. Well, here's the thing, right? Joe Biggs is boasting that most of the people coming are Oath Keepers and 3%ers. If you look at the Oath Keepers and 3%ers websites, they boast that they're a bunch of active and former law enforcement and military. Okay, policing culture is a cult. The thin blue line, these guys will protect their own. So we're going to get a bunch of regular conservatives and some actual legitimately alt-right people and some actual neo-Nazis, because I've been on their social media, I've been looking at them. They're going to be mixing in with these patriot groups so they can kick some Antifa ass because they can use them for cover. But this cult of the blue line, these people are going to be able to get away with a lot of stuff that a lot of people won't, because police will take care of their own. So you're going to get a lot of former cops or active cops and former and possibly active military that have been watching Antifa, quote unquote, get away with beating up poor Anti-No. And these people have revenge blue balls. Okay, these people, a lot of these unhinged people think the police aren't doing their job, so I'm going to do it for them. And that's dangerous, Pete. That's really dangerous. That's one of the reasons why I have the apprehensions. It's because a lot of these people are cops, and cops get away with all kinds of stuff.
So you're expecting that? Are you expecting that that Joe Biggs is going to have a lot of people there? Is that what you're saying? Because I know you guys follow social media. Are a lot of people going to be going?
If the numbers that he's boasting, if he's not just talking shit, because I think one thing. This is Portland's crap sandwich, and we should be allowed to eat it alone. I think Mr. Biggs is going there to be the big hero and get some viral videos of Antifa being beaten up, and then he gets to go home. But I live here. When my police are exhausted from all these protests, I got to deal with them. They're the ones pulling me over. They're the ones barking orders at me. They're the ones that are threatening me for arrest because I dare to film them.
Let me ask you this: what is the reason for this protest on August 17th? Is it it's not a patriot prayer thing, but it's Americans that are saying that they're going to be going to Portland, and the Antifa members or the leftists in Portland are saying, no, you can't. This is our version of America, and you can't come. I'm being facetious, but what is the reason for it?
Mr. Biggs is promoting the event as a anti-Antifa event, so protesting the existence of someone else. It looks to me like the gauntlet has been thrown down, and both sides are posturing. I mean, if you look at the media that Joe Biggs is producing to promote this event, he's using imagery out of World War II with that adorable star and stripes and stuff, and battle in Portland, yada yada yada, crap. I mean, there's a safe place to legally do combat in Oregon. It's called a boxing gym. I would love it if they could get some people from Antifa and some people from these patriots to agree to go into a boxing gym and sign a release waiver and fight. Then I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah,
it's my city gets turned into a war zone because you people want to see who's got the biggest pecker. Well, I'll keep my pecker in my pants until it's time not to. And I'm not about violence until somebody steps at me.
Yeah.
But if they do step at me, they try to hurt me or someone I love, I'll finish a fight. I mean, I won't start one.
I gotta be kind of. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I'm kind of uncomfortable about the following. Like, for instance, when Joey Gibson says, "Hey, we're gonna go do a Patriot prayer rally, and we're not gonna just back off just because of threats of violence. We're gonna go do the Patriot prayer rally, and we just want to be left alone." I'm for that. But I feel uncomfortable with the whole, I mean, anybody, I'm not going to single out a name like Joe Biggs or anybody that says, we're going to go to Portland and go face off with that. That's asking for trouble there. That's not to go there and pray freely and speak freely. That's to actually confront. That's confrontational. So I feel uncomfortable about that. That's a recipe for disaster.
Especially when these people are boasting in their membership that they're a bunch of former cops and former military and some active and some active military and some active cops because of policing culture. Okay. And,
Antifa should just know. On the other hand, Antifa should just know. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Antifa should know that they will get their ass kicked. They keep pushing it. They will. I mean, they weigh 100 pounds. We don't. We eat meat. They lose. That's it. They just need to know that.
What is Deb saying? I'd like to hear.
She said,
I said
he wants to be.
I said, what's the chance of Antifa backing off?
Why don't they back off? Why don't they just say we're not going to show up? Why would you not want to just neutralize Joe Biggs or anybody else?
If you look at the history of Antifa before the fight became against the mainstream right, and before the fight became against Joey Gibson and Haley Adams and other right-wing commentators, they were legitimately going after people that are members of something called the National Socialist Movement, the NAS, the actual real bona fide Nazi groups. You can go to their website if you want to throw up in your mouth a little bit, but these are socialist Hitler wannabes. Or they would go after people that were part of racist skinhead organizations, dox them, harass them, run them out of the towns that they lived in. That's what Antifa did for years before everything got mixed up. So,
okay, Mike, what made Antifa go the other direction and literally start going after prayer groups? I mean, people who are just coming
and just red MAGA hat wearers
and threatening them. I mean, what made them turn to that?
It's really complicated because Antifa is not there's no central organization. The best way to describe them is a flock of angry birds that react to a theme, because anybody, the only criteria for being part of Antifa is to put on a mask and fight the perceived enemy. Okay. And when I was a kid, when I was a teenager and young adult, I would fight skinheads. And I don't mean little slap fights. I can't talk about the stuff I did to neo-Nazis because of the statute of limitations. Okay?
Right. Well, we're not.
Here's the thing.
We're not about
patriot groups.
We're not about the white supremacist. I'll tell you that right now. We are just opposed.
These patriot groups, Joey Gibson and Haley Adams and others, have allowed honest to goodness neo-Nazis to mix in with their groups, and it gives them a place to hide. See, these actual Nazis, okay, and people that are part of these neo-Nazi groups and these white supremacist groups, these white nationalist groups, hide behind phalanxes of riot cops, and they hide behind Joey Gibson's free speech. And when a riot happens, people don't think logically. When you have crowds of hundreds of people and all these less than lethal weapons are blowing up all around you, and people revert to a very Cambrian mindset in a riot. I've been in like dozens of them. They act more like animals than human beings. I don't care what flag you wear or what political affiliation you have. So all people see online when they see somebody in Antifa or somebody with a black mask on that's part of Antifa punching someone in a manga hat, they'll see that little 35-second video clip and they're like, oh my God, they're just beating conservatives. That's my dog, right?
That's okay. That's okay.
But, oh my God, they're just beating conservatives. What they don't understand is that it was part of this larger, basically shit sandwich, this psychological soup of horror that people just don't understand. So that's what's going on. A lot of these Antifa people are wanting to hunt the actual Nazis that are hiding behind the flag.
Yeah, but I mean, what about the people that are hiding in the Antifa groups? I mean, and there are plenty of them too, and they definitely have an agenda. They are very violent oriented, and we've put out warnings many times that this is exactly, and you've even said it here in this interview with Pete today, that this is exactly what they want. There are those people in there that are misguided, and they want the violence. They want to bring the violence. I mean.
I think the problem is that Antifa
FBI
doesn't have any central leadership. Antifa doesn't really have any command structure.
Well, do you think it's possible?
Anybody who shows up in a mask gets to be Antifa, and violent a-holes will be attracted to both the Patriot side and the Antifa side. Like lots of the people that fight with Antifa at these protests wear masks, conceal their identity, for the reasons of wanting to fight Antifa and get out of those charges. No case, no face. I have dozens of still photos and scores of videos showing people on the right wearing masks doing the same kind of violent, repugnant stuff. So until we can get back to the point in civil discourse to where, like, Pete and I can disagree on things, but I'd never dare try to raise a hand to the man. I respect him too much for that. He listens when I talk. He disagrees with me. I'm probably said a dozen things in this interview that's going to make Pete want to throw up in his mouth, but he's strong enough and psychologically balanced enough to have a productive discussion with someone they disagree with. Until America can get back to that, we're screwed.
Now, listen, in the essence of time here, we got like 5 minutes left. I want to make sure that I give out. You guys, I do want all of our, Mike is like family to our listenership and will forever be that way. I want you guys to follow his work. He does a really, really responsible job, regardless of his political views. He's out there wanting to document injustice. And that's a good thing. We need that. We need independent media. Go to his channel, Oregon Cop Watcher. Looks like, is that a new channel? You got like 20,000 subscribers over there. That's great.
I took over a friend of mine's YouTube channel. I have 2 main channels now with a combined viewership of like 40,000 views or whatever.
That's great.
But just really quickly, I'd like to plug something.
Please.
I'm investigating a unjustified officer involved shooting right now. So the best video to start watching about that is Walking with a Dead Man. I did a poor man's forensic analysis of a shoot, and I've been researching this unjustified police slaying of a man who was unarmed. Contrary to the corporate media's machinations, the guy didn't have a weapon when he was shot down by the police. And I actually have contacts inside Portland Police Bureau, officers that I know that have told me it's a bad shoot. But yes, do check out Walking with a Dead Man on the channel Oregon Cop Watcher, and then check out underneath. There's more video and more links to research underneath that video. But yes, I am more concerned with the civil liberties of everyone that interacts with the police than I am my own political perspective and ideology.
Yeah, and you have even testified there was a gentleman that actually had pulled out a weapon in Portland. And you were a witness to that, correct? He felt threatened. He felt his life was in danger. He got arrested. And
Mike Strickland. Yeah. When Michael Strickland, he was approached by some leftist protesters. They weren't Antifa because Antifa wasn't even on the radar then. He felt compelled to draw his weapon to make them get away from him because they were pushing and shoving him, and he felt threatened. And I was present. I helped form a line of people between Strickland and the rest of the crowd so that Strickland could walk away and not be attacked anymore, and so that he wouldn't feel compelled to use his firearm. Then later, Strickland was arrested, and he was railroaded in the court system, just really screwed over. Because, yes, he did pull his weapon out, but he said, "Get back away from me," after he's being attacked by a crowd of people. And I say to him in the video, "Put the weapon down." And he does. He reholsters a weapon, and then me and some other folks form a line of the people that were going at Strickland and ask them and, guide that situation from something that could have been potentially very violent to something that was not violent.
Yes. That's great.
That's how I roll. That's what I do.
That's great. That's awesome. You do very responsible work. I appreciate your professionalism. I want to share you with our audience, and I need to bring you on a more regular basis, especially. Wonderful. And the only thing that I have a beef with you about is I'd like to have you cover the Patriot side of things, but I know that you'll get picked on by Antifa if they see you over there hanging out with the cops.
I actually do walk on both sides and document things. I like to argue with the people on the Patriot side of the things.
You do?
Because, they say a lot of things that trigger me. Because a lot of people that claim to be good flag-waving loyalists or patriots wouldn't know the first clue about their rights, civil liberties, wouldn't know the first clue about the founders and their intentions, wouldn't know a clue about the things that were expressed in the Declaration of Independence and then further consolidated into American culture, which is the Bill of Rights. But a lot of these people that call themselves patriots don't know anything about that stuff.
They don't.
I love arguing with them.
Dude, like I said, I'm going to bring you on more. That's all we got time for. We kept you for an extra half hour, and that's awesome. I'm really glad that we got a chance to to introduce you to our listening audience. Thanks for spending time. We're going to talk, actually, I want to cover Portland in a big, big way. So we'll talk in the next couple days, I'll give you a buzz. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. Don't go away.